Hey, this is Matt. Once again, welcome back to another video. This is another paid request, this time from Peter. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, reviews, re-reviews, randomness, out of the blueness, wherever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. It could be for pretty much anything. And Peter wanted me to do a commentary on the 1988 film Fright Night Part 2, which I'm a fan of. It's not as good as the first one, but I am a fan of it. But I'm watching on a DVD from overseas, which the nice thing is that it's in widescreen and the picture quality is a lot better than, because I'm used to seeing Fright Night 2 on VHS quality, whether by bootlegs or so forth, because the whole rights for the film got screwed up because the company who released it, its boss, got killed by his sons, who are the Menendez brothers, and that was a big spiel about that, and it screwed up the company, and it screwed up the rights, and in America at least, I mean, you probably did a Blu-ray from overseas, and did a DVD from overseas. Might need a region-free, because I'm using a region-free Blu-ray player. So I don't know. I would guess, but I don't know for certain if you need it for that. But let's get right into it. Pause at the beginning. 3, 2, 1. Pressing play. The Vista organization presents for syncing. And boom, we have a montage of the first movie. The first movie is one of my favorite vampire films. That and From Dusk Till Dawn. I love this film. I love Roddy McDowall. William Ragsdale plays a good lead. I love the old school effects. I love the Rear Window story mixed in with this vampire stuff. Well directed by Tom Holland. Probably my favorite Tom Holland film that he directed. The original Fright Night. Tommy Lee Wallace film. That's the guy who directed the Halloween 3 underage sequel. He directed the miniseries It. Stephen King's It from 1990. Now this is one of the few flaws I have with the film. This whole setup that Charlie doesn't believe in vampires because he went to a psychiatrist. That's a big pill to swallow. And you can't even, I remember trying to be like, oh, maybe the psychiatrist, he hypnotized him because he's a vampire. No, they're in daytime right now. Like when they get up, Fright Night Part 2. Underrated sequel. I don't think the sequel gets the respect it deserves. See, it's daytime. If the guy was a vampire, he'd be burning up. So it was me trying to be, oh, there's gotta be some but it's like that's such a lame, like, did you really need that? You didn't need that setup. It makes the audience off the bat going, come on. All the stuff you saw a vampire blow up in front of you. It's not like a 10-year-old kid who, hey, you were imagining things. This is like a grown man, but so it's a bitter pill to swallow for the beginning, but as one man would say, it does get better. I like the music. I like this piece of music too. The other thing is that you don't have the girlfriend back again from the first movie. So you're like, well, I mean, a part of the first movie is that love story and the fact that, you know, you don't have that. I don't know if she just said no. I should rewatch the documentary on this, because there is a nice documentary, You're So Cool Brewster. I admit it's a well done documentary. I may not be a fan of some of the people that made it, personally, but for the most part, they did do a good job with that documentary, and I do want to rewatch that again. But we got Roddy McDowall. Love this man. Big fan of him. My favorite role of his. He really helped this film work, say, with the first film. And there's such a likable character, and also the fact that he gets scared, he gets frightened, but then he gets the courage. It just makes him a bit more of a three-dimensional character. And in the first one, his show was getting canceled. Here, he's pretty much getting replaced for a younger, hotter host. And here's his new girlfriend, Traci Lind, which Traci Lind was in a couple movies, but then she disappeared. Like, even that documentary, like, they got Tommy Lee Wallace, they got William Ragsdale, they got a lot of people who played the villains, Jonathan Grease, who I remember was the werewolf in the Monster Squad, and he was in Napoleon Dynamite. Brian Thompson, one of the vampires, who was the villain in Cobra, Sylvester Stallone film. Man, this movie looks a lot better on, like, DVD quality. Again, just for so many years, seeing it on VHS, and then seeing the whole widescreen format, just nice to see. But yeah, Traci Lind, I always thought did a good job, and I liked her. Idea it's like weird that you don't have the girl from the first one, but just how it goes, life happens. She's probably like, I don't want to do a sequel. I know, from what I understand, Roddy McDowall and the director, Tom Holland, of the first one, wanted to do a Fright Night Part 3. And there was actually talks of it before this one came out. And they're talking to the guy who did the company that released this. But then they left, and sometime later, again, the guy died because I think both the parents were murdered. And I know at least the father was murdered by the Menendez brothers. And that's a whole shebang on itself. But I like the sequel. Again, it's not as good as the first because of issues like the beginning setup, but there's some interesting stuff to this as well. This character try to be turned into a vampire brings at least a little bit of difference compared to the first. It's great to see these guys again. William Ragsdale and Roddy McDowall do make a good team. It has some very nice effects and memorable moments, like the variety of vampires. I mean, in the first one, you mainly had the one vampire, then his assistant, who wasn't a vampire. He was just would you call him a ghoul? I don't know what you call him. He's not human. But here you have Julie Carmen, who I remember from In the Mouth of Madness, as your female vampire. You have the roller skating girl guy vampire. You have the bud eating Brian Thompson. That's such a weird quirk. And you have Jonathan Grease, where is he I always kept thinking he was a werewolf when I was a kid. I mean, I guess he's a vampire, but I always kept thinking, is he a werewolf? He just seems like more of a werewolf than a vampire, but I think he is supposed to be a vampire. But yeah, just different type. So I like the idea that there's variety. And William Ragsdale, he didn't get to do a whole lot throughout the years in movies. He was on a TV show, Herman's Head. I forget how long that lasted, but Fright Night, when that came out, that was a surprise hit. People did not think it would do anything. I was like, wow, this made a little bit of noise, a little bit of buzz. And then a couple years later, you had the sequel, which, because of the whole bullshit with the release, it barely got released and barely got seen, and most people found it on video. But I thought Tommy Lee Wallace did a fairly decent job. I mean, Tommy Lee Wallace worked behind the scenes with his buddy John Carpenter, a lot of the early work. He was behind the scenes on Halloween and The Fog and other stuff. And then again got to direct Halloween 3. He was given the job to direct Halloween 2, but he's like, I don't know what I could do with this. But then got Halloween 3. And then Tommy Lee Wallace, I think this was the next film he got, I can't remember. And then after this, Stephen King's It. Again, seems like a nice guy, Tommy Lee Wallace. Seems like a nice, friendly guy. Pretty decent director. But yeah, it does give a different dynamic of the seductress part of the vampires with Julie Carmen. Which she must know who this guy is. There must be something to it. Like this sort of revenge plot for the death of her brother, Jerry Dandridge. Which I actually, you know what, that doesn't bother me. I mean, it was never said that Jerry Dandridge was an only child. So the idea that... See, that's what I mean. This doesn't feel like a copy of the first one to me. I mean, the only thing I would say is that you don't have to make them not believe in vampires. I think he has to believe in vampires again. That's not needed. I don't think that really accomplishes anything in the plot. It just becomes a bit annoying. But, like I said, I like the cast. I like the effects. I don't think the humor is as strong compared with the first one. I do like Traci Lind. And like, she was one of the few people not interviewed for that documentary. Which I don't even know if people could get that documentary nowadays. You're So Cool, Brewster, the story of Fright Night. I think the first part of that documentary was put onto a Blu-ray of Fright Night 1. Which, like, why the fuck did, you know... They couldn't put Fright Night Part 2, because there's footage from Fright Night Part 2, and no one knows who owns the footage, and they don't want to get sued. Yeah, there's Julie Carmen. Again, there's some nice shots like that reveal... And Julie Carmen is sexy as hell. Like, she's definitely one of the more sexy vampires. I mean, if you did a top 5 sexiest vampires... You get the idea that she's kind of fucking with his head, perhaps. Make him a bit more... There you go, messing with his head. Like I said, it's a different approach compared to the first one. Again, that stuff makes it at least a little bit more interesting. And lo and behold, a sequel that tries to do something a bit different. I disagree with my friend Michael CP. Again, one of my dear friends, but it's fine that we don't agree on every single thing, because that way it's not, well, you just bandwagon on this guy. No. With your friends, there's stuff you disagree on. And with Mike, I know he said that he thought the newer Fright Night 2, the direct-to-video film, was better than this one. I disagree 110%. Teach their own. That direct-to-video Fright Night 2... I don't think holds a candle to this one. He said in his review, like, I like this a lot more than he does. Again, I don't like that Fright Night 2. I think that Fright Night 2 is rather lame. This one, I like the cast more, I like the leads more, I like the effects more. Even the look of the film, like these gliding shots of the camera. It definitely gives more of a theatrical feel. Like, to me, it looks like a movie, while that other Fright Night 2 just looks like it is a direct-to-video film. I'll give credit, that film has a couple interesting ideas, but they deserve to be in a better movie. And there's kind of a creepy image coming up where I will admit, I'm embarrassed to admit, I thought that vampire was a girl when I was a kid. I just assumed it was a girl. I didn't know, because as a kid, I just didn't know about that stuff. I didn't know that there were guys that dressed like girls and vice versa. Didn't know anything about it. Know that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying I didn't know anything about it. And because I lived in a middle of nowhere in Iowa, where the big talk is the new Adam Sandler film. Yeah, this is the foggiest, smokiest school ever. There's like a fire going on. And, that's why is she so fast? Roller skates. Roller skate of death. Like, this is a pretty good style. The slow motion, the blood spray. And Brad Fiedel doing the music yet again, where he did the music from the first one. Brad Fiedel, underrated composer. He did The Terminator, Terminator 2. He did these two films, Fright Night Part 2. Brad Fiedel, you don't really hear his name come up anymore. I don't know if he retired. He just, ooh, tits. Sorry. I forgot. Ooh, tits. See, he looks more like a vampire, but he is supposed to be a werewolf. I mean, I meant the reverse. He looks more like a werewolf, but he's really a vampire. See, the tits scramble my brains. Not that that's a bad thing. I just was like, tits, titties, and then my brain just malfunctioned. I meant to say he does look like a werewolf, but he is supposed to be a vampire, from what I understand. Could be wrong on that, but it's never mentioned that he's a werewolf. I guess he's just a different type of vampire. There's a couple funny bits. Jonathan Grease is a lot of fun. You're supposed to bite her on the neck, asshole. I didn't like. This is a cool shot. Like flying through the sky like that. Oh, there's another camera. Like, I mean, Tommy Lee Wallace definitely wanted to move the camera in this film, which is, sense of flight, which makes sense when you deal with vampire. You had that in the first Fright Night as well, so it's nice that's carried over. And this is a fuckable better than the remake. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I just say sorry just out of habit, but I say sorry out of habit, but I'm not really sorry. So it's one of those things. But yeah, the Fright Night remake. It's too bad that actor passed away who played Charley Brewster, but that film still sucks. Bad CGI, Colin Farrell. Hey, Brewsty. Hey, want some Brewsties, bro? It was a lame remake that did not need to be made in the first place. With terrible effects. Lame humor. It wasn't scary. It wasn't funny. And Colin Farrell, to me, was an awful vampire. He wasn't intimidating. He wasn't memorable. And you bring Jerry Dandridge, the actor himself, to come in to get killed by Colin Farrell. It's the new killing the old. Ain't that cute? Yeah, it's about as cute as a dead porcupine on the side of the road. Was that the Predator I saw? Yeah, there's a poster of the Predator behind Charley Brewster. I never noticed that before. Thanks to DVD quality, I was able to notice that. I mean, it definitely showcased Charley's a fan of sci-fi. Which made sense. I mean, he watched these horror films, Fright Night and such, in the first movie. So he didn't completely abandon that. But I guess you kind of notice that maybe he does lean more towards sci-fi based on these posters. Or sex kittens and women's prison. I just never thought Charley Brewster would watch a movie called Women's Prison. But I guess maybe this points that it's more sci-fi or that kind of stuff and less horror because of the vampire flashes situations. The thing is with the sequel, it's hard to strike lightning twice. And that's where a lot of sequels just, they don't feel as fresh and as inventive and as new, because it's not. But here's the thing, I do like sequels. I like the idea of sequels. When I talk about films nowadays, not only are there a lot more sequels, to they're not just sequels, but they're sequels to old ass franchises. This is at least a sequel to a new bit of business. Okay, this is a sequel to a film, 2, 3 years ago. Ew. That sort of terror. Simple effect, but also just one of those things. Was he bitten? Was he imagining this? What's the whole deal? Was it him being fucked with in the mind by this female vamp? Torture him psychologically? The idea is a different ordeal for Charley Brewster to come deal with, so it doesn't feel, again, like a repeat of the first. But as I was saying, like, sequels back to the day, yeah, I mean, Aliens, I love Aliens. I love a lot of the Elm Street sequels. Rambo First Blood Part 2 is my favorite of the franchise, and Rambo 3 I love. Die Hard 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance, like, plenty of sequels I love, from action to horror to whatever genre. It's just nowadays, it's this nostalgia kick that to me is like a fad, where we're making sequels not even to new franchises. Like back in the day, it was sequels to these franchises being brought upon to create new stuff, new material. It's, let's take something from 20 years, 30 years ago, reboot it, requel it, sequel it, and nothing new is really being done. Now, just because it's new doesn't automatically give it a pass, but I want to see more of that effort. Yes, there are always exceptions to the rule with everything, but at the same time, when I see a Stream 5 that did, I'm sorry, nothing really new from Stream 4, as old ass had a meta bullshit. When I see a new Chainsaw Master that all it's doing is Halloween 2018, when it's doing all this other shit, just fucking tiring and gets old. I mean, this is one of those interesting quirks where, like, he gives the scientific name of a bug and then he eats it. You're like, what the fuck? And then at the end, when all these maggots come out of his stomach, it's a definite, memorable death. I like the bit later on when they're bowling. Oh, that's basically... Remember, the trailer to the film, there's a couple different versions of the trailer with different songs. One is Through the Midnight Hour. Down to the midnight hour. Which is in this movie. The other song, I'm trying to remember what it was, because I was watching this horror trailer, 80s horror trailer marathon that was released on Blu-ray from Trailer Trauma. Well, the company's called Garage House Pictures, that are no longer around, but they did these Trailer Traumas, and one was Trailer Trauma 3, 80s horror edition. There was like 6, 7, 8 hours of horror movie trailers, and one of them was Fright Night Part 2. I'm like, wait a minute, this is like a different song. So I think this is like the original trailer. What the original... And I forgot what the hell the original song was. But it wasn't like the Through the Midnight Hour. It was a different one. But it wasn't Rescue Me, was it? Rescue Me. No, I forget what it was, damn it. I'm still trying to think when the psychiatrist is turned into a vampire. And why they turn him into a vampire. Again, if like the bowling. Bowling can be fun though. I haven't bowled in a long time. I'm not good at it at all, but bowling can be pretty fun. Again, I probably would say like the first film is a bit tighter paced because you had introduction of our characters, him hearing a scream, and then this rising tension of this neighbor. Is my neighbor a serial killer? No, wait a minute. Is my neighbor a vampire? No one will believe me. Try to get people to believe me. Or I can only defend myself. So you have a bit more of this rising tension, this pressure cooker, and you can't do that again, otherwise it'd just be a repeat. So this doesn't have as much of that. At times it feels like it has a little bit less of Roddy McDowall, and I actually would have liked to have seen a lot more Roddy McDowall. There's a part of me that would have been nice to see a Fright Night movie from Roddy McDowall's perspective, where Roddy McDowall is being, like, if the most of the movie was starring Roddy McDowall and he's doing his, like, maybe there's a vampire at his job or a vampire somewhere around that, and he needs Charlie's help. I think that would have been cool to see. Maybe Fright Night Part 3 that could have been. Or even this one. But again, I do like the film. It's just nice to see these characters again. I think it's well filmed. I think the compositions are well done. I think the actors are likable enough. Like in Traci Lind, nice, cute girlfriend. William Ragsdale. Again, he's one of those guys like Zach Galligan that, were in a film that people remember. Like Zach Galligan was in Gremlins. William Ragsdale was in this movie. And they didn't get to do a whole lot. I mean, they were in other stuff. Like Zach Galligan did Waxwork and Waxwork 2. And was later in, Hatchet 3. And William Ragsdale. What was the film I saw him in? I'm like, wait a minute, that's William Ragsdale. Holy shit. God, I can't remember. I know I reviewed it. I can't remember. I do like Brad Fiedel's music. That's another positive for this. The score's a little bit more unique in these Fright Night movies. And of course, he ditched his girlfriend because he's on a questionable, perhaps, vampire hunt. But yeah, Fright Night Part 2, this came out in 1988, which was a pretty good year for movies. I mean, in 88 you had, at least for me, Rambo 3, you had Die Hard, you had Bloodsport, I think you had Above the Law with Steven Seagal. I think that was 88. I think it was 88. But yeah, Bloodsport with Van Damme, like I said, Die Hard with Bruce Willis, Rambo 3 with Sylvester Stallone. You had Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master, Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. This one. I'm like, damn, this is a good year. This is a good year for horror sequels. It was a good year for action movies. And in 89, you had Elm Street 5, Friday the 13th Part 8, Halloween 5. I'm like, well, that was a not so good year for sequels, in my opinion. I know there are people that like Friday the 13th Part 8 and Halloween 5. That's to each their own. I'm just not a fan of those at all. But we can't be all a fan of the same thing. It's just impossible. I love Jason Goes to Hell. 95% of the population hates that movie. Yeah, to each their own. Yeah, and that's what you guys... we can't all agree and disagree. I do think in retrospect this first half could be tightened up a little bit because we didn't need for Charlie to believe in vampires again. And like, I mean, the movie's not that long. It's an hour and 39 minutes. But it's about maybe 10 minutes. Well, maybe like 5 minutes that could be truncated to move at least that bit along. But of course, I mean, it's a hard idea to make a sequel in the first place because, again, the whole thing of Fright Night was this rear window ideal of how there's Jonathan Grease. Yeah, he was the werewolf in the Monster Squad. He, sort of a jovial character. And the thing with sequels is that there's always... the thing about it is that if you're a fan of a movie, when you see that first movie, it's what brought you to the dance usually. It's what brought you to the dance as in introducing to the characters, introducing to the story, introducing to the lore, introducing to the tone. Yeah, it's real, man. It's real. See, nowadays you'd have a cell phone to record all this shit. Yep, and she knows. But what was I getting at? Oh, with the anytime a movie of that breaks out, then automatically every fan of that film has a sequel written in their head. Every fan has a sequel written that they could they could go in this direction, and then when there's no way the filmmaker is going to know what let's say 1,000,000 people. Well, that's a lot. Let's make a very low number. Let's say 2,000 people. More than 2,000 people like Fright Night, but I'm just saying 2,000 alone. That's 2,000 people that, a sequel you could do this, a sequel you could do that. How is a filmmaker going to guess what 2,000 people who, at least half of them don't have a completely different version, what could be done, what could they do, how could they satisfy? And you just have to make a movie that's decent enough to get people's attention and enjoy it. Again, I think this is a fun sequel. I think this is a worthy sequel. It's great to see these two guys together again. I think the finale is fairly entertaining. And I definitely think the finale is the best part of this film. Julie Carmen is a sexy vampire. Like, who the fuck is this guy? I don't think we ever see that guy again. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? This is like a guy, a stockbroker, who just doused the whole thing of cocaine up his nose like a funnel. And Roddy McDowall just has so much joy when he's playing as Peter Vincent that it's infectious, and would love to have seen just so much of this character. Like, I would love to have seen a part 3. Like, I don't know, 91, somewhere around there. I think that'd be really cool. Like, one more movie for a trilogy. And have that one take Roddy McDowall's point of view. And Roddy McDowall's character be the star of it. And again, it could be a vampire that, I don't know, it either works for, is that, I was going to say as a job, but they kind of did that when Regina becomes the new host of Fright Night. Maybe like a movie's being made. A movie's being made, and maybe, I don't know, maybe Charley Brewster wrote a script. He's obviously a film fan. Maybe he wrote a script loosely based on his life. And of course, like Hollywood, they change everything, and you could get into the whole Hollywood business and the cutthroat business of Hollywood. And, you could parlay that humor into the proceedings, and someone hires Peter Vincent as a consultant, and as a vampire hunter, but as an actor of this horror stuff, and then there's like a vampire on set. Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I haven't really put much thought into it. Anyone who watches this, what would your Fright Night Part 3 would be? A little bit of music from the first movie, but there's also a song which you hear at the end credits, which takes some of the music from Fright Night and put a little bit of lyrics into it. And also kind of an interesting twist where usually it's like Dracula getting the girl and enchanting the girl and like making the girl into a dance. I mean, how many times have you seen a Dracula or that type of movie where a vampire gets a girl to dance and the girl looks and, oh my god, sees no reflection? But here it's like the opposite. Now it's the female vampire seducing the guy, and the guy happens to be our lead. There's a little bit of twist of things. And hey, progressive! Since people want to say films back in the day were never fucking progressive, which is ridiculous. I'm like, almost every fucking slasher film. Oh, that's an interesting shot. That's an interesting shot. Like I don't know. I forgot about that shot where the cross, like away from her, she looks normal, but near her, she has the vampire look, and it doesn't cut away. Like, that's a cool looking shot. That's strange. I don't remember that shot. Man, it must have been a while since I've seen this. Of course, her faking that she's got contact lenses. That's a nice little smart choice for this character. That she does this as an act. I like that idea. Trying to play with people's being like an actress, and this is all an act, and that way try to mislead people a bit more. And I kind of like, now that I remember, the sort of reversal where Peter Vincent believes in the vampires and he has to try to convince Charlie, because it was the reverse in the first movie. So, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you need the whole Peter Vincent being in the insane asylum. I would prefer him out in the world trying to gather more evidence and trying to maybe avoid these vampires a bit more. I would probably prefer that a bit more than the whole insane asylum bit, where he's kind of trapped and kind of locked in there. Again, there are a couple things that I have little nitpicks about, but I don't think this is a bad sequel in the slightest. I like that Peter Vincent. There you go. Yep, there you go. And see, I think it would have been cool if you. This is now like more Roddy McDowall's movie. Come on, you gotta believe, man. And Julie Carmen does a good job. She's not trying to be Jerry Dandridge. She's being her own type of villain. And again, she's sexy, she's seductress, and does a good job. Believable. I love her like big vampire look too that you would see like Fangoria magazines, like the tremendous vampire. Just I don't know if you want to say her big form. Mainly when Peter Vincent opens up the elevator door thing. I love that look. That's like one of my favorite like vampire looks. But yeah, I like that now he's the believer and Charlie's the skeptic. I think that's a nice little twist of things. And again, they don't put him in the insane asylum thing. That's a little bit They have him really be like on the move. I try to gather other bits of information, other bits of evidence, things of that like. But Ryan McDowall just sells his role hook, line, and sinker. Like I said, what's great about Peter Vincent is that he does get steered, he does get frightened, he does get uneasy, and that makes him a bit more believable, a bit more real. I don't like him either. Like in Jonathan Grease, he definitely gets some humor out of it. I think this is where Brian Thompson goes. He's supposed to bite her in the neck, asshole. I think one of those weird like bug things. And there's like interesting little quirks. As it does bring at least a little bit different, or like I said, ordeal for Charley Brewster that have to go through like this psychological torture, so to speak, of trying to be succumb to being a vampire. And we have this sort of mist, which I don't know. Well, I was gonna say I don't think they did a whole lot of that in the first Fright Night. I guess. Sorry, when in a way when Evil Ed is killed and the hallway, not the hallway, but the alleyway fills up with mist, and then Jerry Danders is behind him. But like here, you see the full actual transformation from mist. And this is going to be like the ultimate torture because he killed her brother. Like, I'm going to turn him into a vampire and. I'll make him suffer for ages. I don't know. I like this bit. Like, he's at a circle of fire, candles. He's got like 15 crosses right then and there. He definitely made sure he was secure and safe. And like the first thing he does is check his neck. That's actually a nice little detail. Like as soon as he wakes up, like maybe he was dreaming of it, or maybe he was having a nightmare of it, or again, there's nice little touches. But again, Roddy McDowall, again, great actor from the original Planet of the Apes films, at least most of them. To he was in Class of '84, Class of 1984. He was in this bad slasher film called Cutting Class. But yeah, my favorite role is definitely as Peter Vincent in these two movies. I actually want to try to see if I can find up some information on this so I'm not just blindly sitting here just staring at the screen. KPLP News? This is a revamp of a show. And then the first one is being canceled, now it's a revamp. Yep, got fired. Fuck you, buddy. How about that? How about suck on these? Go find some cocaine to sniff. To that director, whoever the hell he is. Producer, whatever the fuck. Like, the film gets a 5.9. I think that's a little bit low for it. Let's see, I'm trying to find trivia. Like, the first one gets a 7.1, which deserves it. But, like, I mean, Vamp has a higher rating. 6.0 Vamp. And, like, the Fright Night remake has a 6.4. I'm sorry. The Fright Night remake is not better than this. At least not in my opinion. Like, again, the Fright Night remake is a 6.4, which has terrible CGI, laughable shit like the one vampires going out exploding. You know, unintentionally laughable shit. Like, come on. This film has a better cast, a more interesting story, better effects, better musical score. Here's some of the info I have. Well, IMDb, so take it for a grain of salt. Soon after the film was wrapped up, Roddy McDowall and Fright Night creator Tom Holland were scheduled to meet with live entertainment chairman Jose Menendez and discuss making a third film. But Menendez was infamously murdered by his sons. As a direct consequence of this horrific tragedy, Part 2 ended up losing its planned countrywide distribution and playing only in one LA and another New York theater, which resulted in poor box office results, being released almost straight to video. Since all the movie's planned promos and ads were canceled as well, most people never even learned of the movie's existence until noticing it at their local video store. Roddy McDowall and director Tommy Lee Wallace had an unpleasant lunch with live entertainment chairman Jose Menendez to discuss the film's distribution and marketing. OTC. See, now, even IMDb, this is two different stories. One says, after filming was wrapped, McDowall and Friday creator Tommy was scheduled to meet with live entertainment to discuss making a third film. And then here it says the director and Tommy Lee Wallace and Ryan McDowall had a lunch to just discuss the film's distribution and marketing. And later the same evening, slaughtered by his sons. As news of the murder swirled around Hollywood, McDowall phoned Wallace and cracked, "Well, I didn't do it, did you?" It's a dark joke, but it's pretty funny. Tom Holland, he didn't do the sequel because him and Chris Sarandon did Child's Play. Stephen Jeffries was offered to reprise Evil Ed, but turned it down to take a starring role in 976 Evil. The Evil Ed character was renamed Louis, who was ultimately portrayed by John Dries. It would make no sense for Evil Ed to come back. How the hell could he survive? He got staked, and he turned back to a human after being staked through the heart. That would have made no sense, him returning. That would have been fan service. That would just be bad fan service. One of the few, if only, vampire films to acknowledge that roses will repel vampires as much as garlic does. According to legend, 5 plants could repel vampires: garlic, wolfsbane, hemlock, wormwood, and wild roses. Interesting. It was Brian Thompson's idea for the character to recite the name of each species of insect before he ate them. Acclaimed choreographer Russell Clark portrayed Belle, the mute, androgynous roller skating vampire. He was hired not only for the dance scene with Julie Carmen, but also to coach his vampire co-stars to move together fluidly. Yeah, the one guy who Charlie was checked in the neck to see if he was bitten, who played the character Richie, Merritt Butrick. I believe he was also played Kurt's son in Star Trek 2 and 3. He was diagnosed with AIDS. He wanted to do the movie before he died, was candid with the crew about his health since little was known about how the disease was transferred. Yeah, it's very sad to hear. An early draft of the script included Amy Peterson, the girlfriend for the first one, and Evil Ed. But neither of the actors who played those roles were impressed with the material and decided not to come back. Amanda Bierce was busy with her TV series Married with Children. Stephen Jeffries got a starring role in 976 Evil. Charley Brewster, in a cut scene, so it's a deleted scene, said Amy's whereabouts. She started dating a lot of older men that all vaguely resembled Jerry Dandridge. One of them owned a bank. She married him and moved to Houston. But yeah, I think that scene was cut. The movie had a $7.5 million budget and a 45-day shoot. In 1988, the film was adapted as a graphic novel released by Now Comics. Yeah, this is a film that just deserves. Sorry, answering a text I got. Okay. Ah, here we go. The coffin. Little crypt. This bitch is in. Fuck that bitch. This is where part of the finale will take place as well. I mean, you think about vampire films throughout the years. I mean, back in the day, you had Nosferatu and Dracula, and when you get into the 80s, I think people. There were vampire films, but they were kind of looked at as old hat, kind of like the Frankenstein monster or werewolves. I know some people think the red in the eyes look cheesy, cringy, but I don't know. I think it works for what it needs to be. But what was I going to say? There were werewolf films of that time and vampire films. Again, it's just like, okay, we have to put a new take on it. So like werewolf films, you had The Howling and American Werewolf in London. In this film, vampires, you had Fright Night and that one mentioned Vamp and other stuff. This is speed reading through Dracula. Yeah, someone explain, is this supposed to be a werewolf or is this supposed to be a vampire? Because people keep saying werewolf, vampire, whatever. I think they could have stated that a bit more. I mean, it never. I don't think the words werewolf is used. And it seems like vampire, like it's a different type of vampire. Like a vampire can turn to a wolf. Evil Ed did that in the first Fright Night. So maybe he's like more wolf-like in his vampire states. I think Evil Ed turned to a wolf. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. But that's the boyfriend. It was a little bowling. We brought that up before. They have that song, "To the Midnight Hour." I don't know why a scene like this stuck in my head. I think because, again, this is very unique. It gives these villains a little bit more personality. I think that's why. Because what do they do other than kill people? They go bowling. They can take over a bowling alley and they play jokes on each other. And Brian Thompson, you see how much more powerful he is. Jonathan Grease, how much more clumsy he is. And the idea they play pranks like the bowling, the head, and the bowling thing. So again, it gives the villains a little bit more personality, not so much blandness. And you find a lot of that in movies today, whether it be villains or other stuff, just bland, lame, nothing memorable, nothing noteworthy, nothing to even talk about when you're trying to explain some of these villains or some of these characters. That's what's missing from a lot of movies is like personality, let alone ingenuity or originality or anything in between. And this is the thing. Watch it again. I would say, it coasts along based on some pretty decent visuals, direction by Tommy Lee Wallace. Again, enjoying the actors. But again, it's just maybe not as lightning the bow as the first, but all those sound effects, just like pumping the blood out. It shows how sound effects can work. And that's their boss, being the new owner of Fright Night. Oh, this has one of my favorite Peter Vincent uh, deliveries. I, what do you do for a living or something? I kill vampires. Just the way he delivered that. It's like, he surely fucking does. Of course, like Regine, you just say in a way she got hired because maybe it remind people of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, in the world of here. As like, okay, we need new fresh blood. We need a sexy lady that gives people interest to see it. Get a little bit maybe that Elvira taste as well as his performance artist. Which again, it makes it so that, to repeat myself, doesn't seem like just the same type of villain. Here you go. I kill vampires. I love that bit of delivery, sort of this realization. No, this is what I do. I kill vampires. But then this is what leads him to that asylum thing. It's like, I wish there was just more for Roddy McDowall to do. We set him up in the sequel. Just that's what I mean. I wish we could see more Roddy McDowall. It feels like we see either just the same or even a little bit less. But again, that's one of the few drawbacks I have with the sequel. I want to see more of Peter Vincent. I want to see more, even if it's like, I don't know, like a road trip where they're following this vampire and his carnage and defeating vampires left and right, or trying to stop it before it reaches some bigger or gigantic city, or I don't know, maybe like a murder mystery, trying to find out who's a vampire, or again, maybe like the. Doesn't have to be a story on Fright Night, but it could be, I don't know, some kind of vampire movie being made. And it's like, hey, hire all these people who dealt with vampire movies, including, oh yeah, Peter Vincent, sure, why not? He's a has-been. But yeah, hire these other people, and then you find out like one of the big stars, maybe a rivalry of Peter Vincent, or like we had Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee back in the day. I don't know, just, hey Charlie, come on up to Hollywood. Look at what I'm being a part of, and vampire thinks nothing of them, but then doesn't realize that these two have dealt with vampires before and knows something's up. I don't know, just I just greedy for more screen time for Roddy McDowall. Here we gotta get Traci Lind to believe in vampires so that she helps out Peter Vincent's character. And Peter Vincent definitely becomes more crucial in the third act since Charlie's becoming more turned, so to speak. Oh, I love this shot. I remember coming out where you see the up close of the eyes. Yeah. Jonathan Dries, I mean, he's having a lot of fun with his performance. Very joyful and with exuberance. And yeah, definitely like a werewolf type of look, kind of like a Michael Landon. I was a teenage werewolf type of thing. But yeah, no, for vampire films, I would say my top five favorite would be From Dusk Till Dawn, number one. I would say the original Fright Night, number two. Number three, I would put. Yeah, this is like a wild dog. He used the roses. Read that in the book Dracula. That's why I showed her reading the Dracula book. She was able to find that out a bit. A little bit of puppetry work. Try to get that fire out. At least no annoying CG to take you out of the proceedings. Like, that's done in camera, so I'm still within the scene. I'm trying to think. This is where he tries to kill her on TV. I don't know why that makes me laugh. It's not really the best course of play. I don't know how he thought he'd be successful in it, but but oh, yeah, the vampire, like one for Dusk Till Dawn, two the original Fright Night, three. I don't know. I mean, there's John Carpenter's Vampires I enjoy. I do like this one. I gotta think about that. This might be in my top five. Because I think like my favorite horror films of all time, usually they do include creature features. Like I said, the Blah remake, John Carpenter's The Thing, stuff like action stuff like Aliens, Predator, Predator 2, action with sci-fi horror. So I guess by this point they bit the psychiatrist, but again, it makes me wonder why did they even fuck with the psychiatrist in the first place? And when? I mean, I guess it becomes a twist. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming, which is true. And it's not like this asylum stuff is awful. I like this guy here with the long hair. I forget who he is. They talked a bit about in the documentary who this guy is, but there's some fun stuff here. I guess I just wanted him to just be able to do more. But yeah, I do like this guy who becomes his helper and helps him get out of this. Might as well call him his number one fan right off the bat. I mean, the psychiatrist bit is a bit weird. It is a bit weird. It does kind of seem to come out of nowhere. That's why I mean, like the original Fright Night, I would probably give 5 stars. Like I know it's a high rating, but yeah, it's one of my favorites of the '80s. This one I'd probably give maybe 3.5. I can't quite give a 4. Again, like the opening segment, some stuff like this that seemed out of nowhere. I think there's about 10 minutes of pacing that could be tightened up in the first half. But I think it does have a lot of good merit. I do think it's a worthy sequel. So I think like 3.5 would be a fair rating for it. I don't know, maybe you thought maybe it'd be like the one guy Richie, who's like a friend of Charlie's. Like maybe he'd be the one doing this. But I guess this will further prove, number one, gives Traci Lind something to do. Lets her be able to kill a vampire, which even Amanda Beers didn't get to do in the first movie. I think Traci Lind, I liked her. I always liked her. She did a few other movies. She's capable, good looking as well. Definitely a decent actress. Plus, I just did a little bit more comedy. I mean, this seems a bit too much. Like the psychiatrist trying to talk why. I would. It did a couple smirks on me. To be fair, I don't think it's an awful scene at all. But it did make me chuckle, so it did its purpose. It just seems a bit almost random. I mean, I guess in truthfulness, you could have just cut that whole bit out, and I don't think it would really change anything. But we were getting to our finale. We got 26 minutes left, plus about probably 3-4 minutes of credits. So almost to the last 20 minutes of the film. Last 25 minutes of the film. And it is nice that, you give, I mean, people want to talk about progressive. The girl has more to do here than the first. She kills a vampire. She's able to get Roddy McDowall out of this asylum, and because of that, able to save Charley Brewster. Is that a damsel in distress? It's a guy in distress? And able to bullshit her way into this. I think this guy, for what I remember in the documentary, he was making this stuff up about arguing with his mop and all this stuff. I do like this guy. He does look like someone that be in like a rock band. And I mean, that's the thing. Like when you're in a film for only a couple minutes, and you have to make an impression. This guy does it. You don't kill your vampire now. See that? I mean, that's one thing at the asylum that I do like is I like that guy. So, and we weren't in there too long. So, for some reason, I remember it being a lot longer. It is war. We must be prepared. And this is like the end of my favorite part of the movie, where it's the battle. Roddy McDowall gets the tools of the trade. We got the religious cloak. We got the holy water. All that jazz. So, each person gets their moment to shine, which is nice. And see, that's why she's going to make him immortal and then torture him for 100 years or whatever. So there you go. I love all the little, like, Peter Vincent posters. Stuff from his old movies. That's a cool, like, gun. Like a little stasis shoots out. And then you have this, like, it looks like a flamethrower, but it's to shoot the holy water. But if we don't try. Talk about we're living on the edge. We're living on the edge. That's a pretty decent shot. Yeah, it does give the nice look that you have real people that fucking high and in a dangerous situation. And similar predicament that Amanda Bierce was in the first Fright Night. Because that's the thing with sequels. Someone would say you have to do the same thing, but you have to do it different. And, I mean, that's a very tough order to do. Just how do you do the same thing but do it different? It's a very tricky tightrope. I mean, if it was easy, then every sequel would be successful, which is not the case. But yeah, this is the guy on the right who played Captain Kirk's son in Star Trek 2 and 3, and he's one who had AIDS while doing this, and sadly passed away soon after, which is sad. Which is too bad. Pretty much makeup hid the puncture wounds at the party. Up here you go. There, I mean, in the family you get to see definitely more of a makeup. Here you go. Yeah, definitely like the throat opens up. Yeah. There you go. Nice little ghastly effect there. The Peter Vincent at least killed one vampire. So she killed one, and Peter Vincent has killed one. At least so far. And although briefly, it's nice to see like Charlie as a vampire is like a nice little twist. Although briefly, but it makes it a little bit. Oh shit. There's some nice angles used here. Sorry, now I'm just sitting here just enjoying and viewing. But hey, Charlie, we need to get Charlie to do some stuff. Saya fucking Nara, pal. Bullseye, bitch. See, there's nothing about Silver or anything, so I'm guessing he is just a vampire, just a wolf-like vampire. Staked right to the heart. Bullseye. So each one's killed at least one. Thankfully there was another way out. But yeah, Brad Fiedel's music, I think, very appropriate for the film. I like the camera work here too. Yeah, some nice camera work following the characters. It's not schizophrenic cutting or editing. And that's a nice little shot. Going so quick that just doused the... Fucking shit. And here we'll get another nice moment for Charlie where... Nice heroic moment where... Yeah, kind of we've seen other stuff where you're about to succumb and then you... Get a nice death scene for Brian Thompson's character. Granted, this probably would have been a little bit more effective if it was Amy from the first one, Amanda Beers. So like, Amanda Beers has gone through this, and now she's seen her boyfriend going through the same thing she did. And like, you could maybe put that into the dialogue during the scene. Hey, remember this happened to me? You didn't give up on me. I'm not going to give up on you. Yeah, you could put that into, again, the dialogue of it all. But it is what it is. I like Traci Lind. So it's like this catch-22. I like Traci Lind, but at the same time, the continuity of Amanda Beers. But, she said no. Which is weird, again, because, again, the first movie, she became the victim, damsel in distress. Here, she would have killed a vampire, and she would have helped save the day. So I don't really get what she means about the script wasn't up to snuff. I mean, if that was the case, technically Amanda Beers would have had more to do here than in the first movie. But it is a nice moment for Charley Brewster to overcome, so he's not as much a victim. Enjoying the character in the first movie is nice to see that. Not shitting on the character. Look at that, a sequel doesn't shit on the previous characters. Like how Dewey and Stream 5 and all the original characters when they put them in the Disney Star Wars films, and lo and behold, treating old characters with respect. That's an animatronic, Brian Thompson. You tell with the face and the mouth going, and all these maggots that just thrust out of there. Not even just his stomach, like hitting his lungs too, and all that, just filled with maggots. Definitely a memorable death, like eee, that kind of thing. It didn't just his stomach, just right up to his fucking lung area. There you go. Toro, motherfucker. I like that each vampire death is unique as well. I thought that was a good idea. They made each vampire death unique. That was another nice touch. Instead of just the same each time. So like, one gets harpooned and out a window. One is the maggots. Here, really creepy, like almost Raiders of the Lost Ark melting, but it's like this yellow. I mean, again, gives a unique take on it. Again, there's another one of my favorite pieces of music. Has a creepy factor to it. I like the camera work of going through the hole in the door as our characters approach it. They pretty much they're gonna your lead Charley Brewster gets to do some stuff, and each person has their moment to shine. Peter Vesta gets his moment to shine is he gets the piece of glass and burns the bitch. So again, you give your moments to your characters so they don't feel completely useless or pointless. Yeah, there's a coffin at the bottom. And pretty much we're on a timeline here. So we are in a time rush, because if we wait any longer, he'll succumb to the vampire stuff. And here's Peter Vincent moment to shine, which is nice to see. I also like the lighting. I like the angle here, the showcase just how deep this elevator shaft is. Like the red light, almost like ready to descend into hell. Elevator to hell, going down. I just like this setting, this setup, like, because it just makes it seem different, like an elevator shaft, and it's just not typical, but still that modern on an old. Oh, just doesn't feel like just a copy of the first. Now, ultimately, with a vampire, you either gotta stake it or you gotta burn it. That's a smart idea. Fuck with her coffin in case she tries to go into it. And this is what I was talking about, how when he opens the top of this elevator and you see that, to be a really cool looking, like one of my favorite vampire looks. And you remember earlier in the film he had a cross and it didn't work. Well, not gonna be the same this time, bitch. And we see the point of view of the vampire, just her being pissed. It's like a nice moment for Peter Vincent. Back to back! Gotta be, have to, there you go. I forget who did the effects on this. But this is such a cool design. Right here. There you go. I think that's a really cool design. With the hair and just that. Well, hey, Traci Lind tried. And then you get the final temptation, and Peter Vincent's able to help out one more time. Which, again, it's sad that we never got a Fright Night Part 3. It's just, I mean, yeah, it's more sad that a guy died because his sons were pieces of trash. Well, I don't know if the guy was a piece of trash, but on a more superficial front, to be fair, the fact that, you know, this is a film that didn't really get a release. It got dumped into a few theaters. It barely got publicity because apparently it got all canceled with all the crap going on. The studio pretty much going up shit creek. And apparently no one knew he was even in theaters. I bet you couldn't find anyone that saw this in theaters. That it pretty much did go straight to video. To me, as a guy that watched films on VHS, I'm like, oh, there's Fright Night. Oh, there's Fright Night 2. So, you know, was nothing to me, but there probably were people that said, wait, there was a Fright Night Part 2? Okay. Weird. And there you go. His moment to wake up from that temptation. There you go. That's teamwork. I call that teamwork. That's cool that Peter Vincent gets to be the one to fuck this bitch up. Nice. If it's gotta be the final hurrah, at least Peter Vincent has a nice final hurrah for this. I mean, he's definitely the big facilitator in making this bitch burn to death. The effects on this fire might not be 100% holding up, but I still enjoy it. I'll take over a lot. I like this fireball. Done for real. I'm just saying, like maybe a miniature, and they just have a fireball go up. You film it. There's more charm and there's more, like even this with the skeleton popping up and the gory bits on it. More physicality in that than just doing it all CG, which just takes me out of the fucking film. There are exceptions. There's always exceptions, but I much prefer the real practical latex way. Because it's in the room. You can't get more real than real. And some of these other older techniques just have more of a charm to them. But yeah, I wish this film had got a proper release and had a chance. I wish we could have gotten a Fright Night 3. Would have been nice to see what direction could have taken into. Again, do a Fright Night 3 from Roddy McDowall's point of view. And then maybe, Charley comes into it. I think that'd be really cool. I mean, kind of what they did with the Unnameable 2. I know it's a random reference, but the Unnameable was this film based on H.P. Lovecraft's story. And then the sequel, the older guy got a bit more time to shine. And the star of the first one was still in the film, but was a supporting role. You could have done that for Fright Night 3. And I like the little bit where they both have crosses on, just in case. That's a nice little touch. And they're right by wild roses, just in case. A nice little detail. We're just going to be by these wild roses, just in case, and in the daytime. Pretty decent song, too. But yeah, I like... the cast helps it a lot. The musical score. I think Tommy Lee Wallace did a more than competent job directing, especially usage of the camera. He has some good makeup effects. Let's see if it says in the credits. Fast forward a little bit. Do they say the makeup effects? I'm sure they do. I just don't know where. Let me check it out real quick. Try to see where there would be sound editor, color, special visual effects by Fantasy 2 Film Effects, model makers, stop motion, makeup effects unlimited. Bart J. Mixon. Special makeup for Louis and Bosworth, created by Greg Canham. Yeah, Come to Me, written by Brad Fiedel. In the Midnight Hour by Wilson Pickett. Yeah, a film that, again, still doesn't have a Blu-ray release in the US. Best bet is to look overseas if you want it, and decent picture quality and widescreen. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care on a bit of an underrated sequel, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.